and then spawn the horde. Oh my. Today I want to share with you a new script. This script will allow you to spawn a custom horde of enemy that will rush and attack your base or a static position in your scenario. RYD SH Horde script. So I set up a little mission here to demonstrate this new script I'm going to share with you. So before I can show you anything in this mission, how the script works, we need to first install it. So let's go to the scenario tab at the top and then down to open scenario folder. Here we are in the mission folder, and what we need to do is install the script. So I have in my other folder here the zip file for the script, and what I'll do is I'll link this zip file in the description of the video. That way you guys can download it and use it in your own missions. So once you get the zip file, all you have to do is just open it, and you're going to grab these two scripts and put them into your mission just like that. Now you have two scripts. The RAYD SH Horde script is the main script, and this is kind of like a parameters and initialization script that makes the script work. Let's start with the init.sqf. So at the top here you have this line of code. This basically calls the script in your mission. This second line here is a main line where you can define the number of enemies to spawn. This code doesn't work by itself. It works with another code that you have to put in your mission, like in a trigger. With these codes here, you can define a custom enemy with class names to spawn. Before we kind of get into these, let's go to the main script itself. Let's go to the script and review it. RYD SH Horde script by Rydegear and Gunter Severlo. So the script was written by my friend Rydegear. The way the script works is normally if you spawned a group of enemy in your mission, they're going to be following a formation and come at you in a formation. So let's say if you spawned 10 groups of enemy, each one of these groups is going to be coming at you in a formation, and it doesn't look like a horde at all. It just looks like a bunch of groups coming at you. I really wanted a bunch of enemy to just mass up and kind of be dumb about attacking you, and they would just attack you blindly and completely ignore you and not actually engage you until they were like almost on top of you. So that's kind of what this script does. When you actually spawn enemies with this script, you're not spawning groups, you're actually spawning individual soldiers that will act as a group for each soldier. So one soldier will equal its own group. So if you spawn, let's say 50 soldiers, each will be their own group and each will basically horde together. We scroll down and we have directions of the spawning horde. Now here, this is all commented out, but this is basically kind of like a reference. This here is just stating that this code here is pointing to north. This one's pointing to east, south, and west. This is the direction that the horde will spawn at. So I have some notes here. It says the 0 is for the north direction that the horde will spawn from. When you're in game, and let's say you're facing the east, and you have 0 here set, north on the compass is 0. So if you wanted the horde to come from the east, then what you would do is you would change this number to 90, which will make it east, and the horde will spawn 300 meters from your position, and they'll come at you from the east, exactly east. That's how you define where the horde spawns and what direction and how far they will spawn. This code here, distance equals 300, this is the distance of how far away a horde will spawn. If we scroll down, these codes here are commented out. I have a title here. It says put one of the following codes into a trigger. You have 3 code options here. So code option 1 is to call a side with a set number of enemy. This code here, put this into a trigger. You could define the enemy. This is the number of enemy that will spawn when you trigger, either a radio trigger or an area trigger. Or you can go to option 2 and you can have a custom variable. Now the custom variable, all you need to do is put this into the on activation box of a trigger. So the player is the target, east is the enemy side that will spawn, and with this you could either just spawn 04, which will just spawn CSAT, or you could use custom class names to define what's going to come for the enemy. We're going to start with this, copy this, press Ctrl C, and we're going to go in the mission and set up a trigger and add the code to the trigger. Let's set this up. Let's go to F3 triggers, and we're going to choose a trigger without a size. Going to place the trigger right here. Then we're going to edit the trigger, and then at the top in the text box we're going to put spawn space horde, and then in the trigger activation box we're going to set it to radio alpha and then to repeatable, and then in the on activation box we're going to press Ctrl V, which will paste the code. Now reviewing the code real quick, wherever the player is at, he's the target. Now the Horde is not going to deviate from their path. So if you are at a base and you have this set up to where the player is going to defend the base and the player leaves the base and goes somewhere else on the map, the Horde is still going to come at the base. They're not going to follow the player, but the player is the target if he is at the base. He's kind of like the central location, not specifically the main target. It's their guiding point. East is the East faction or OB4 faction, and what you're going to get is a group of CSAT soldiers, a whole bunch of different ones coming at you. Whatever you want the horde size to be, you can define that here. So there's going to be about 50 of them that are going to spawn. Well, now that we have that, let's hit OK, and let's save that and test it out. At the start of the mission, if you have the hint enabled, it's going to come up on the screen like that. It'll say the horde is coming. You don't have to have that. To actually call this the horde, we're going to press 0 on the keyboard and then go to where it says radio, and we'll click that, and you'll see it says spawn horde as we defined in the text box of the trigger, and we're going to spawn the horde. So now you can see that the horde spawned over here. Now note, if you open up your compass, that it's 0. Remember in the script that we said 0 is north and the horde is in the north? Now if you wanted the horde to come from the east, you would set the code for the in the script to be 90. So let's get ready. A minute here, you can see them coming. Let's get over this wall and get set up real quick. Get upstairs before it's too late. Threw a grenade at me. Did one guy survive? Yeah. Damn. Gotta reload. Alright, that was the horde. That was only 50. Alright, let's open up the trigger and let's set this for 150, which is a lot, yes. We'll just hit OK, and I'm going to show you something else that you could do with this. So let's take this trigger, we're going to copy it, you should see it right here. Press Ctrl C, and we know that the horde is going to spawn in the north here. So what we're going to do is we're going to place the trigger here. We're going to edit the trigger, and we're going to just have them spawn 50 more. And instead of a radio alpha trigger, we're going to set it to 04 present, and just not repeatable. You don't want it repeatable. And then we'll just set it to a rectangle. 04, remember 04 is going to be present. We'll just hit OK. And then we're going to resize this using the area widget. So let's make this big enough so that when they walk through it, that they trigger the trigger. Or just kind of expand it and just square it up a little bit. So what's going to happen here is when these guys come, I'll put it right about here. When these guys get about to this point, they're going to spawn another 50 part of the horde. So let's save that and let's try that. So to initialize this, let's go to the radio trigger and then spawn the horde. Oh my. And let's get into position because once these guys get through that trigger, the radio trigger is one way to call the horde. The area trigger is another way to call the horde too. All you need to do is have that code in there. Something to initialize. Let's do something different. Let's go back to the script and I'm going to show you a different code that you could use and customize everything. Alright, back in the mission folder. The same code that we used in the trigger is basically this. So you're going to use this code instead, and you're going to define how many enemy are going to come. So what you need to do in order to activate this code, to use this code, is you have to remove the 2 forward slashes, which basically enable that code, and this code will be used. Alright, then we'll save that, and then from there, at the bottom of the main script, you're going to use this code here, and you're going to put that into the triggers activation box. So we're going to press Control C, copy that, and we're going to go back into the mission and test that. Alright, back in the mission, edit the trigger, and now in the on activation box we remove this and we use the other code. This code is similar. This is still the side that's going to be east. That's the side you're basically still going to change in the code, but for the number you're going to change that in the init.sqf. We'll just hit that and save that and test that out. Alright, so the hint's not going to come up this time, but we still have the radio trigger. So let's open up the trigger. You press 0, go to radio, and then spawn the horde. So here comes the horde right now. Whole mess of them. Alright, back in the mission folder, we're going to go to the init script, and this is the code that we just used. So you could see here we defined 50, and that's what spawned. So what you're going to do now for a custom horde is you're going to disable this by putting 2 forward slashes, and then you're going to choose one of these lines. So each one of these lines will be a custom number. You don't actually need these guys right here. These are just examples of what this is. It's just the same thing. So what you're going to do is you're going to undo that. You're going to enable that, And what we have to do is we have to go back in the mission, acquire class names, and put the class names in here. To get custom class names, we're going to choose an enemy that we want to spawn. So I'm going to choose independent. I'm going to go down, and I want a bunch of looters. For some reason, I like looters. I like killing these guys. So we're going to choose a bunch of guys, and we're just going to place a whole mess of them. Copy these guys. We're going to press Control-C. Just copy some more. Alright, so we have a whole mess of enemies. And just to let you know, let you understand that if you're going to fight against independent, remember these guys are friendly to you if you're blue 4. So what you need to do is you need to go to attributes and then general and make sure independent's allegiance is not friendly to you and that they're enemy so that they attack you. Otherwise, for this horde, if you didn't do that, they would just ignore you and just run past. They won't even attack you. So by doing that, what we just did, this horde will attack you when they see you once they get within range. So what we're going to do is highlight all these guys. We're going to right click one of them. Then we're going to go to log and then go to log classes to clipboard. Now once you click that and the menu disappears, all the class names are logged, then you can just delete them. And we're going to go back to the script and add the class names. Alright, back in the mission folder, let's open up the script again. So here we have the horde defined variable, and what you're going to do is you're going to paste those class names right here. There's going to be quite a few of them. Once you paste the class names, what you need to do is you need to put quotes before and after and commas after. So I'm going to do that real quick and then I'll show you. Now once you have all the quotes after the class names, then in between each class name you need a comma. And the last one doesn't get a comma, only commas after, and that's it. Alright, so make sure that you check your code, because if it's incorrect, you'll either get an error or the script is not going to do anything. Alright, so this is basically the code that you're going to use. We already have a code in a trigger, and when that code gets activated through the trigger, it's going to read this line and load these guys. Let's save that and let's go back into the mission and check it out. Alright, back in the mission, just a quick check here. Our code here actually needs to be updated to independent. Alright, and we'll save that and let's test it. Activate the horde, go to radio and spawn horde. So here we have a horde spawned, and we have a bunch of looters. Let's go inside. So if you wanted to load a different group of class names for whatever, let's say you were using IFA3 and you had class names here like you do here, then all you need to do is literally go to this line here, disable it like that, and then enable this. So it's kind of like an on-off switch. This code will be read over this because you turn this off. So these lines, as I said, are the same as this. It's just different labeling and what have you. So I set this up for Modern War. I set this up for World War II. So these are just examples. You don't have to use these examples. You could set up your own lines. But basically, this is the main code right here. So if you don't want to have labels, you could do that. It doesn't matter. And then in the script itself, these are more of a reference than they are anything. So you could just leave these commented out. You don't need to use the hint unless you want. Just remember about the spawning direction and the distance. So just a note that you can change this distance to something further, like 400 or 500, or you could reduce it as well. For more codes and scripts, take a look at this playlist.